Somewhere under the Utah desert, a man is stuck upside down in a crack barely wider than his shoulders. His heart is now pumping blood into his brain faster than gravity can drain it out. Rescuers can hear him breathing. They cannot reach him. In 27 hours, that cave will become his tomb. And the only tomb in America that's also a federally sealed crime scene against nature itself. Caves feel like the safest hiding places on Earth. Cool, quiet, solid rock on every side. That's the lie that kills people. A cave doesn't care how experienced you are, how much gear you're carrying, or how many times you've done this exact dive before. It floods without warning. It narrows without warning. It runs out of air without warning. For over a century, cavers, divers, miners, tourists, and even children on school trips have walked into the dark convinced the rock would hold, and the rock didn't care. These are the stories the caving community still tells in hushed voices, the ones that changed safety laws, closed caves forever, and in a few cases, left people entombed exactly where they died because nobody could ever get them out. In January 1925, a 37-year-old cave explorer named Floyd Collins was trying to find a new entrance to Kentucky's cave system that could outdraw the tourist traps nearby. Cave tourism was big business in the 1920s, and Floyd wanted his own gold mine in the dark. He found a narrow passage called Sand Cave and squeezed inside alone. No backup, no rope crew, nothing. On his way back out, his foot kicked a rock. That rock fell and pinned his ankle against the cave wall. Then a second rock slab dropped and trapped his arm above his head. Floyd Collins was stuck, 55 feet underground, in a passage so tight that rescuers could barely reach him, let alone move the rock. Word got out. And this is where the story stops being about a cave and starts being about America itself. Newspapers picked it up. A journalist named William Skeets Miller, small enough to crawl to Floyd, became a national sensation for his live reporting from inside the collapse. Within days, an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 people showed up outside Sand Cave. Vendors sold hot dogs. A Ferris wheel and food stalls appeared. It became, quite literally, a circus above a dying man. Rescuers tried everything for 2 weeks. They dug a separate rescue shaft straight down toward him. On day 17, they finally broke through, and found Floyd Collins had been dead for days, likely from exposure and starvation, his body twisted in the exact position it had been trapped in. But Floyd Collins wasn't even the last person that cave would claim. Getting his body out took months. And in a final indignity, his corpse was later put on public display in a glass-topped coffin inside the very cave system he died trying to profit from. A paid tourist attraction, until it was stolen in 1929 and later recovered, damaged. Floyd Collins didn't just die in a cave. He became the first American 24-hour media spectacle, decades before cable news existed. Fast forward 84 years. Same country, same story, worse ending. On November 24, 2009, 26-year-old medical student John Edward Jones took his brother caving in Nutty Putty Cave, Utah, a maze system famous among local cavers for a passage nicknamed Birth Canal. John was looking for a different, easier route. He took a wrong turn into an uncharted crack. He got in headfirst, and upside down. The passage narrowed as he went. At its tightest point, it was 10 inches by 18 inches. John Jones became completely wedged, head down, feet up, in total darkness, over 100 feet inside solid rock. Rescuers reached him within hours. But being upside down for that long does something the body cannot survive. Blood pools in the head, blood pressure crashes, and organs begin shutting down from the inverted position alone, separate from any injury. And the rescue itself almost killed the people trying to save him. Over 100 rescuers cycled in and out of the cave across nearly 28 hours. A pulley system rigged to pull John free tore apart under the strain. Twice. At one point rescuers had him moved roughly 12 feet closer to freedom before the system failed a second time and he slid back into the crack. Around midnight, John Jones went into cardiac arrest. Rescuers could not perform CPR. There was no room to even get their arms around him. He was pronounced dead at the scene, still trapped, deep inside a hole that was, at points, barely wider than his chest. His body could not be safely recovered without risking more lives. In a decision that still divides the caving world, the state of Utah pumped over 150 cubic yards of concrete into the cave entrance in 2009, sealing Nutty Putty Cave permanently, turning it into John Edward Jones's actual grave. 2 men, 84 years apart, killed by the same simple math. Rock doesn't move for anybody. But not every cave death comes from getting stuck. Some come from something far faster and far more merciless. Water. On June 24, 1967, a group of teenage boys from a school in Leeds, England, went on a routine caving trip into Mossdale Caverns in the Yorkshire Dales. It was meant to be an easy exercise, the kind of school outing that happened every year. Miles away, a storm broke. Rainfall that would normally take a full day to drain through the cave system arrived in under an hour. Mossdale's passages acted like a funnel, and the cave began flooding from the inside while the boys were still deep within it. 6 teenagers, ages 14 to 15, became trapped in a chamber known as Nyreka Passage as the water rose behind them, cutting off any route back to the surface. Rescue teams reached the flooded section within hours. It didn't matter. The passage the boys needed to escape through was now completely underwater, and stayed that way for days. It took rescuers roughly 60 hours of pumping and digging before they could even reach the chamber. All 6 boys had drowned. It remains, to this day, one of the worst caving disasters in British history, and it permanently changed how caving clubs across the UK assess flash flood risk before a single person is allowed underground. Off the coast of Dahab, Egypt, there's a sinkhole in the Red Sea that local dive shops don't advertise the same way they advertise the coral. It's called the Blue Hole, and it drops straight down over 130 meters, 426 feet, into darkness. Divers who go there aren't just diving. They're chasing an archway at roughly 56 meters, 184 feet, depth called the Arch, a tunnel that connects the sinkhole to the open sea. More than 130 to 200 divers, the exact figure is disputed, but locals simply call it the world's most dangerous dive site, have died trying to find that arch. The killer isn't the depth alone. It's nitrogen narcosis, a condition where compressed nitrogen at depth acts almost like alcohol on the brain, causing euphoria, confusion, and terrible decision-making, right at the exact moment divers need clear judgment most. Divers get disoriented searching for the arch, miss it in low visibility, run low on air, and panic. Many of the recovered bodies were found far past recommended depth limits, some near 100 meters, chasing a passage they were never trained to attempt. Local dive shops have started refusing to rent gear to divers without proof of deep diving certification specifically because of the Blue Hole's death toll, a level of caution that came only after decades of funerals. Water kills fast. But sometimes the danger isn't the water, it's simply going too deep, too far, with too little air, in places built by humans, not nature. Eagle's Nest, in Florida's Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area, looks unremarkable from above, a swampy sinkhole in the woods. Underwater, it opens into one of the most complex, deepest known underwater cave systems in the continental United States, plunging past 300 feet. At least 12 divers have died there since the 1980s, and it's earned a nickname among cave diving instructors, the Mount Everest of cave diving, except unlike Everest, most of the bodies are recoverable, and recovery teams have had to go get them. Eagle's Nest requires full cave diving certification and specialized gear just to legally enter, and it still keeps killing experienced divers. The system's depth causes the same nitrogen narcosis risk as Dahab, combined with total darkness, silt-outs where a single fin kick can turn crystal-clear water into zero visibility instantly, and a maze of passages that don't forgive a wrong turn. Several of the deaths involved divers exceeding their training level or their planned dive profile, chasing a personal record in a cave that has no interest in anyone's records. In June 2018, 12 boys from a youth soccer team and their coach went to explore Tham Luang Cave in northern Thailand after practice. Monsoon rain arrived early. The cave flooded behind them, and the entire world watched as they became trapped for 18 days, deep inside one of the most complex cave systems in Southeast Asia. This story had a miracle ending. Every boy and the coach survived, pulled out one by international rescue divers in an operation that took over 2 weeks to plan and execute. But the rescue itself had a body count of 1. Sarman Kunan, a 38-year-old former Royal Thai Navy SEAL, volunteered to help lay oxygen tanks along the escape route through flooded passages. On July 6, 2018, while returning from delivering air tanks deep inside the system, he ran out of oxygen himself and lost consciousness underwater. His dive partner could not revive him in time. Salman Kunan died a week before the boys were successfully extracted. A rescuer, killed by the exact hazard he was trying to protect 12 children from. The Thai government later named him a national hero, and Thailand's Navy SEAL unit still honors his sacrifice every year. So far, a man crushed by rock in a media circus, a man sealed in concrete, 6 boys drowned in a school trip gone wrong, over 100 divers lost chasing an arch, a dozen more in a Florida sinkhole, and a hero who died saving children he never met. Every one of those was an accident. What comes next isn't. Devil's Hole is a water-filled cavern in Nevada, famous for one thing above all else. It's the only place on Earth the Devil's Hole pupfish, a species roughly the size of a paperclip, naturally exists. It's so protected that it's part of Death Valley National Park despite being over 20 miles away from the park itself. It's also, quietly, an underwater graveyard, and at least 2 of the bodies down there have never been recovered, decades later. In the 1960s and 70s, before the site had the legal protections it has now, divers explored the cavern's unmapped depths, which plunge past 400 feet into narrow, twisting rock. Several divers died there from depth-related complications and disorientation. 2 of them, teenagers, exploring in 1965, are still, to this day, believed to be somewhere inside that flooded cave. The area is now so heavily protected, both for the endangered fish and the safety of divers, that recovery is no longer attempted. Their families know approximately where they are. No one has ever been able to bring them home. Sistema Huautla, in Oaxaca, Mexico, is one of the deepest known cave systems on the planet. Over 1,500 meters from entrance to lowest known point, roughly the height of 4 Empire State Buildings stacked underground. Expedition caving here isn't a weekend trip. It's a military-style operation that can take weeks, with teams camping underground for days at a time. In 2009, one of the world's most experienced cave explorers found out that even decades of expertise isn't enough. American caver Chris Yeager died during a Huautla expedition after falling roughly 15 meters while descending, a straightforward rope mistake, the kind that experienced climbers make maybe once in a career, in a place where once is fatal. What makes Huautla especially brutal isn't just the fall risk, it's the extraction problem. A caver injured a full day's travel from the surface, through flooded sumps and vertical drops, can take rescue teams over 24 hours just to reach, and days more to bring out. In systems this deep, the cave itself becomes a form of isolation few other environments on Earth can match. Rescue isn't a phone call away. It's a multi-day underground expedition in itself. Beneath a working lead and silver mine in Nacre, Mexico, sits one of the most stunning natural chambers ever discovered. The Cave of Crystals, home to gypsum crystals up to 12 meters long, the largest natural crystals ever found on Earth. It's also one of the most hostile environments a human body can enter, not because of falls or floods, but because of temperature. The cave sits at roughly 45 to 50 degrees Celsius, 113 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, with near 100% humidity. In that combination, your body's own cooling system stops working entirely. Sweat can't evaporate, so it just sits on your skin doing nothing, and your core temperature starts climbing with nowhere for the heat to go. Without specialized cooling suits and breathing apparatus, unprotected exposure in the Cave of Crystals can cause fatal heatstroke in as little as 10 minutes. Scientists and photographers who've documented the cave describe hallucinations setting in after just a few minutes without cooling gear, the brain effectively cooking in real time. The mine has since been deliberately flooded by the mining company for operational reasons, submerging the crystal chamber and making the deadliest room ever measured on Earth's surface now completely inaccessible. Arguably the only cave on this list that sealed itself. Heat, water, depth, rock. Nature has plenty of ways to kill a caver. But some of the oldest cave deaths in history weren't accidents at all. They were the point. Deep in the jungles of Belize sits Actun Tunichil Muknal, Cave of the Stone Sepulchre, a cave system the ancient Maya believed was a literal entrance to Xibalba, the underworld. For centuries, Maya priests didn't just visit this cave. They used it for human sacrifice. Inside, archaeologists have found the skeletal remains of at least 14 people. Men, women, and children. Left exactly where they died over 1,000 years ago. Their bones now partially calcified into the cave floor itself, fused with the limestone through centuries of mineral deposits. The most famous is a teenage girl now nicknamed the Crystal Maiden, whose full skeleton lies sparkling under a thin coat of calcite, visible to visitors exactly as archaeologists found her. Researchers believe most victims were sacrificed during periods of severe drought. Offerings to gods the Maya believed controlled rain, made specifically inside a cave because caves were seen as the closest physical connection to the underworld. Unlike every other case in this video, nobody here died by accident. They were brought into the dark on purpose, by their own people, and never brought back out. Not every cave horror is ancient. In 1982, during Guatemala's civil war, a cave in the region became the site of a mass killing when government forces targeted a Maya Nile community believed to be sheltering resistance fighters. Villagers, including women and children, fled into a nearby cave system for protection. The same instinct that's protected people from danger for thousands of years. This time, the cave didn't save them. It trapped them. Soldiers reportedly set fires at the cave entrance, using smoke to force people out or suffocate those who stayed inside. A tactic historically called smoking out, turning a hiding place into a death chamber. Exact casualty figures from the broader Guatemalan genocide-era violence remain disputed and are still being investigated by human rights organizations and forensic teams recovering remains from mass grave sites decades later. It stands as one of the darkest reminders that a cave's greatest strength, being nearly impossible to get into, can become its greatest horror when someone on the outside wants everyone inside to stay there. During the Vietnam War, both sides used natural caves and constructed tunnel networks for shelter, storage, and combat, most famously the Siu Kai tunnels. American soldiers assigned to clear these underground networks were nicknamed tunnel rats, a job description that was, functionally, a death sentence with extra steps. Tunnel rats worked alone, in absolute darkness, in spaces so tight they often couldn't turn around, armed with nothing but a pistol, a knife, and a flashlight, searching for booby traps and enemy soldiers who knew every twist of the tunnel by heart. Traps ranged from punji stake pits to tripwired grenades to sealed rooms filled with venomous snakes placed deliberately to kill anyone who crawled in blind. Official casualty figures specific to tunnel clearing operations are difficult to isolate from broader combat losses, but multiple first-hand accounts from surviving tunnel rats describe units where the majority of original members did not make it home. It remains one of the only instances in this list where the cave itself was weaponized on purpose, turned from a natural hiding place into a kill box, by design. Return, for a moment, to Nutty Putty Cave. After John Edward Jones died trapped upside down in 2009, and after the state made the decision to seal the cave permanently with concrete, they did something else too. They placed a plaque at the sealed entrance. It doesn't just memorialize John Jones. It marks the exact spot, underground, where a healthy 26-year-old medical student, a husband, a father of a baby daughter he'd never see grow up, became permanently fused into the geography of a mountain because an 11-inch gap in solid rock was 10 inches too tight. That's the thing every story in this video circles back to. Floyd Collins, sealed in a glass coffin. 2 teenage divers, still somewhere inside Devil's Hole, 6 decades later. A 1,000-year-old girl calcified into a cave floor in Belize. John Jones, entombed in concrete under a Utah mountain that still bears his name on tourist maps as the cave that's now a grave. Caves don't just kill people. In the worst cases, they keep them, permanently, physically, geologically, long after everyone who loved them is gone too. Every entrance into a cave is, technically, an entrance into the only environment on Earth that doesn't care if you make it back out. No weather forecast, no signal, no second chances if the rock decides to move. Some of the people in this video knew that risk and accepted it anyway. Others never got the choice at all. Either way, the dark down there doesn't forget a single one of them. If the idea of John Jones still being sealed inside that Utah mountain right now gave you chills, you need to see our next one. The sunken submarines no one was ever sent to recover. Same kind of story, different kind of dark. Drop a comment. Which case in this video would you never, ever attempt yourself? And if this kept you up at night, subscribe. We go back down there every week.